looking everywhere for my makeup bag, but I simply can't find it. This is ridiculous because our home is the tiniest home of all times. I have no idea where I could have put it. Where is it? Heyo guys, and welcome to my January wrap-up, in which I tell you guys about the books I read in the month of January. I think I got a pretty good start for my reading year, as I read 6 books and my goal this year is to read 60 books, so 10% in. Ooh. Without further ado, let us get started. I started my reading year by reading Lizard by Banana Yoshimoto. Lizard is a short story collection. I actually borrowed it from my friend, so this is only a pick from Goodreads. I've read Yoshimoto's books before. I've read Kitchen, which I very much enjoyed, and The Lake, which was kinda okay. But I think Lizard is now my favorite book by her because I just loved the atmosphere in that book. Each and every one of the short stories are magical realism, and magical realism is the genre I enjoy the most. I don't care if it's sci-fi or pure fantasy, but I love me some realism with something different, something magical. But I really much enjoyed Lizard, and I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars in Goodreads. Next 2 books I read are from the same trilogy, which is Howls Moving Castle, and I read the first one, Howls Moving Castle, and The Castle in the Air. Studio Ghibli movies were my childhood. I loved them so much, and Howls Moving Castle was one of my favorites. And honestly, when I read the first book, I was so, well, disappointed because the book was so much better than the movie, in my opinion. Now my childhood is ruined. Anyway, in the first book, our protagonist is Sophie. At the beginning of the book, Sophie gets cursed by a witch of waste, and she is turned from a young girl into a very old woman. After being cursed, Sophie ends up becoming the housemaid for Wizard Howl and for his moving castle. In the second book of the series, Castle in the Air, our main character is Abdullah. I'm sorry if I pronounce his name wrong. He is a daydreamer. He has always dreamed that he is actually a prince from a faraway land instead of being a carpet seller. But then one day everything changes when he buys himself a flying carpet and meets a real-life princess, Flower in the Night. And even though Howl and Sophie are not the main characters of this book, they do appear in it in a very interesting way. I really did enjoy the trilogy, even though it wasn't really my cup of tea. I gave all the books in it, I think, 3 out of 5 stars. And I think I enjoyed the first one the most. I read a lot of short stories this month because the next 2 books I read were both short story collections, and the first one being Yohannes Any Solos, Kädittömät kuninkaat ja muita häiritseviä tarinoita. Sinisalo is at the moment my favorite Finnish author because she writes my favorite genre, magical realism. And most of the short stories in this collection are magical realism, even though there are some sci-fi stories also. I also ended up giving this 4 out of 5 stars because, you know, I really enjoyed it. And the next book I picked up was Äidin pikku pölveli, aka My Mother Never Dies by Claire Castillon. It was a very fast and short read. I think I read it during one bus ride to school. All the short stories in this one are stories about mothers and daughters and how they interact with each other. But I actually didn't like it that much. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. It wasn't that intriguing for me. And the last book I read this month was Howls of Many Ways, aka the final book in Howl's Moving Castle trilogy. Our main character in this book is Charmaine Baker. She is a young girl who is sent to look after his great-uncle's house, and his great-uncle is a wizard. And as he is a wizard, his house is very intriguing. There is a lot of things to discover and many things to go wrong. And just like in the 2 previous books in the trilogy, Owl and Sophie make appearances in this book also, and this one was the most brutal of all the 3. I think it was funny because isn't this a middle grade series? I think it is. How can middle grade be this brutal? Anyways, those were the 6 books I read this month. I hope you enjoyed watching this video and come again soon, please. I really need friends, you know. Bye! Seriously, might be the first time when I have nothing to say to you. That sounded very, very depressing, but what? I'm so tired, I think. See you in the next one!